Welcome into the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Got a great show today, folks. We are talking cryptids, specifically Bigfoot today. We're taking things in a little bit of a different direction, but a good direction. I love talking Bigfoot, love talking about this hairy creature and about a little bit different side of Bigfoot today. You know, there's two schools of thought about Bigfoot. We've got the aper school of things, and we've got the more metaphysical side of things, and believing as to whether Bigfoot is something else. And that's the school we're going to fall into today. I've got two special guests with me today, and we're going to talk about what exactly Bigfoot is believed to be. And these gentlemen have actual proof, celluloid proof, as to what Bigfoot is. Ronald Meyer and Markreeder are with me today. Ron Meyer is a seasoned paranormal experiencer with encounters ranging from out-of-body experiences and cryptid sightings to non-dual awakenings. He's the owner of Center Communications, a film production company, and has produced and directed feature films in Hollywood. Ron also facilitates flow workshops and holds a 5th degree black belt in Aikido. So we will not be wrestling, Ron. I do have a wrestling belt behind me. It's strictly professional, and I can't do any of that. So just
Wrestlers are always difficult.
they are, but I'm not. Recently, he produced Becoming Evil, which is the #1 streaming documentary series on Amazon Prime about serial killers. We're going to have Ron back for that. Additionally, he is a peer-reviewed, published scientist with contributions to the fields of behavioral cybernetics and paleontology. He resides in Colorado with his wife. And also we have Markreeder with us. Mark, I'm going to be short on his credentials, but we'll get him as we go along here. Mark also is a writer as far as science fiction goes and other publications. He's also contributed to this new book, which again, the new book is The High Strangeness of Bigfoot. The movie is the same, and the movie and the book come out in early April. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome in to Darkness Radio, Ron Meyer and Markreeder. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on to the program today.
Good to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. I want to start with you, Ron, if I can. Now, there's generally two schools of thought, and this has been the argument of the Bigfoot community for as long as time immemorial, right? It's been, okay, Bigfoot is a living, breathing ape or aper. There's the aper school of thought, or it's got to be something more transdimensional. It's got to be another type of being that probably is not like anything we've ever seen. This thing has to be connected to something else. It's not a mammal, if you will. It's not an ape. It's not anything else. It's not like anything we've ever seen. But we can't quite wrap our heads around it because all we have are these fuzzy pictures, or we have the Patterson-Gimlin film, or we have whatever it is that we have here. Now, I do have an article from this past week that I do want to discuss with you gentlemen about the Patterson-Gimlin film. We'll get into that here a little bit later. But I'm curious as to, and we'll get into what you found with your film just a little bit, no spoilers or anything, but I'm curious as to the school of thought and the slant that you take with this film, and why you think Bigfoot isn't an ape or an animal or a mammal.
Well, it's more like the report of angels back in the day, 6, 7 centuries ago, moving forward. These were real experiences for people, I would say, but it was mysterious what they actually were, but nobody would claim that they were a biological entity. So to some extent, that begins the argument that we have that what people experience, and let's just talk about sightings, that this is another kind of entity with the mask of Bigfoot. And I compare it to the UAPs of today, which, you now see them on video. You have these objects, craft, if you like, moving in ways that are impossible in relationship to our current understanding of physics. And so you mentioned the history and the shift in the history of what Bigfoot is. When the BFR was started, do you think you know what that is? It was this organization run by Mattmoneymaker, who And
Yes. Yeah.
people could call in and report their Bigfoot sightings, and they'd do investigation. Um, I think it was Finding Bigfoot, the television series.
Yep.
Um, Bobo, was one of the investigators. He's
Yep.
now firmly convinced it is not a hairy ape type creature or a wild man. Although the wild man metaphor is really important, and Mark can talk to that in a minute and how that fits into it. And so just last year, Mark Moneymaker said, I'm coming over to the other side. And pretty much anybody who's been in the field for a long time has to come over to the other side, that it's not this biological entity of a lineage of some sort of hominid, whether it's human or monkey, ape, whatever. And so I'm not alone anymore. But when I started, that wasn't the consensus at the time. Does that answer your question? So,
Yeah, it does. And I'm curious, Mark, and Mark, thank you for coming on the program today. What is it about this wild man theory, or why is it not this wild man that's roaming the woods of different areas of the United States? And why are we not seeing it residing in caves? And why is it not, we see these twisted structures, these tree structures that obviously are not shelters. But we see evidence of it out there, but why do we not see it? Why do we not see bones that are obviously in the ground that are or in graves? Why do we not see them, you know, in shelters like caves? Why do we not see them residing here on this planet?
So I think there's two parts to your question, and let's start with the first one about any kind of physical evidence. Now, the idea of a Bigfoot is worldwide. It isn't just confined to the United States. You have the Yowie in Australia, you have the Yeti in the Himalayas. You have the wild man theme throughout the Middle Ages in Europe. So it isn't just simply an American phenomenon. But anywhere you go in the world, now you would think that if there is an actual creature out there that is some sort of hominid, something that is ape-like or mimics humans, that there would be physical evidence. There would be bones or fossils. You'd find teeth. You would find uh, you'd find scat. You'd find something that would say, hey, there's a very unusual creature running around here. We don't find any of that. And like you alluded to earlier, there are grainy pictures of what people claim to be a Bigfoot creature. And that doesn't mean that there isn't a Bigfoot creature, but there's nothing physical about it. They didn't run up and capture it. They didn't get a selfie with it. I mean, this is so there is no real physical evidence of this. So that's one reason, that's one part of the story about why Bigfoot would not be an actual physical hairy creature running around the woods. And as I said before, stealing things from people or popping into people's homes or popping into their campsites and wreaking havoc with them, maybe even abducting them. The second part of your question, the second part of that question, I'm running on a little bit, but let me answer it.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Ron alluded to this also, the zeitgeist of the times. The zeitgeist of the times in the 15th century with St. Francis of Assisi was an angel. The zeitgeist of the time in the 19th century was also an angel. You've got Joseph Smith being visited by the angel, giving him the Book of Mormon. The 20th century is different. It's really an age of science, of extreme science. And while still a majority of Americans in the 1950s and 60s believed in angels, the the idea of an angel coming to visit was beginning to be superseded by something else. UFOs, right? 1947 or New Mexico, bam, you've got UFOs. So now we're taking a different turn. The zeitgeist is changing. And it's changing to something that UFOs or UAPs, as we talk about them now, But
Mhm.
then enters the Patterson-Gimlin film, and you have this phenomenon known as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, if you're a Salish Indian, which is talking about a being, a forest being, or the Lakota Indians talk about Chiatonka, which means like an elder brother. We had a commenter talk about that in this comments on a podcast we did earlier. I want to give a shout out to him for making that comment.
Yeah.
Uh, and so the zeitgeist is changing. It's not angels anymore. It's paranormal phenomena. And in this case, UAPs, Bigfoot could be near-death experiences. So I think that is what's changing, and which is going to show that Bigfoot is not a physical being living on this planet 24/7, 365. It is some other kind of entity that is able to talk to people, bring them into some sort of consciousness that is necessary for their lives, and then disappear as necessary.
Can I add one thing to that?
Please.
So there's this thing called the collective unconsciousness. It was first put forward by Jung, but a lot of people suspected that there were these forms that the most common one would be father, mother, son, and there's one that's been throughout the ages, and it's the wild man, the wild woman um, form that people relate to. It's an archetype that we all can experience, and it's something that we all possess and probably want to be, which is kind of this powerful entity that's free,
Mhm.
running free, that it's not confined by the trappings of the society you're in. And that's part of who everyone is. It's got a bit of that. There's another one called the trickster. These are all archetypes that all humans share, and and Bigfoot is one of those, in my opinion. That's one aspect of it. Mark also, the thing, the most common physical evidence are footprints, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so on multiple occasions, I've experienced some footprints that all of a sudden appeared in one place, moved a little ways, and then disappeared again. There was no more, which
Right.
makes it pretty difficult. Did the thing pop into being, stop, walk a little bit, and then pop out again? But other than that, there's no way to explain that, and it kind of points to something that's a little different than we are. Maybe puts it in the category of those UAPs that can defy gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a head scratcher then, isn't it, gentlemen? Because it's one of those things like as you pointed out, Ron, it's is it popping or phasing into our existence or our three-dimensional plane, putting down footprints. If you're putting out food for it, it's eating the food, or it's messing with rocks, it's throwing rocks at our domains. It's twisting trees and making shelters or doing whatever it's doing, but then it's popping into wherever it is it's returning to. Is that the idea here?
So,
I,
well, let me just put it this way. If it's the same entity that's doing the UAPs, then of course it must have the capability of doing all the things you just described, because it can deal with the physical world in a way that we can't right now. So defying gravity in the way those UAPs do, um, making a few footprints or showing up momentarily as a physical being, I've even had that experience myself briefly. Um, Certainly within the range of what it must be able to do, which is kind of what our movie and book is about. What would it be if there was such an ancient presence that was creating all this to do the thing you thought? It creates a mystery.
and let's face it, that mystery is something that humans cannot let go of. We are as curious as cats.
Mhm.
We the the footprints appearing and disappearing, the bent tree structures, glimpses of a being, whether it's like the Patterson Gimlin film or something a little more amorphous. is huge, and we won't let go of it. Just as in the 15th century and in the Middle Ages, people would not let go of the wild man archetype or angels. They would pursue these ideas either in art or in religion. We're pursuing it now. The zeitgeist has changed, and we are really interested in finding out what's happening with these paranormal experiences.
It seems though that even as we talk about it, and I'm kind of as I'm trying to wrap my head around a lot of the concepts we're talking about here, you could either manipulate energy and do that physically, or you could just physically do the things that this creature's doing. Either way, right? It can be done. And then at the same time, I'm sitting here going, but I have another point I want to throw at Ron as he's talking about, um, as he's talking about, I'm all over the place here, gentlemen, today with this topic. There's so many places to go, but I wanted to bring up Patterson-Gimlin here for a second, as we just brought it up, because there's a news story this week, and this is, as we start to say, well, there's people who have had these experiences who have actually seen these creatures and have physically had an experience where they've smelled, something rotten. They've had the creature walk by. They haven't been able to get to a camera to take a picture, but they've had face-to-face contact, and it's been docile. Mm-hmm. Right? You've had other people who have had negative experiences, who have seen an angry creature and have had to get out of there, or they've just felt surrounded by something and had a negative feeling and had to get out of there. Mm-hmm. But then you get a story like this that happened this past week, and it's kind of the figurative rain on the parade that makes you go, well, what do I believe? And let me read it to you real quick, because I don't know if you've heard the story or not.
Yeah, this is based on a new film that's coming out.
Yes, it's a new documentary. You're right, Ron. A new documentary is offered what they call the final verdict on the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot video. I won't read the entire story, but I'll just give you the highlights. They claim that they've got unearthed footage that reportedly proves that the famous clip of the walking Sasquatch that you see in the Patterson-Gimlin film is nothing but a hoax. And they say that essentially, and again, Roger Patterson maintained that until his death in 1972, that the footage was genuine. Gimlin always denied that he had been a part of a hoax to create that clip. The documentary is entitled "Capturing Bigfoot," and it includes previously unseen footage to help make the case that the creature filmed that day in 1967 by both Patterson and Gimlin was a person in a costume. And again, you have to watch a documentary in order to see what that footage is. The new footage essentially shows a trial run of the scene in the original clip, proving supposedly once and for all that it had been staged. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to what you two gentlemen think, and whether does this now rain on the parade of all Bigfoot research, or is this just one set of many different things down the pike of Bigfoot research?
Well, first of all, if the film never survived, I don't think it would have made any difference to the phenomena of Bigfoot in itself. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just one incident that somebody either faked or didn't fake, It's not the whole story. So many people have had real experiences.
Yeah.
Although I must say, nobody has as clear footage, as far as I know, as that shows up. I know Bob Gimlin quite well, and I believe that if it was a hoax, he wasn't part of it. He was just a good old cowboy that was running the horses to get him up to this particular location. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to believe when the story he told about, what happened after they shot the footage, how hard it was to get down off the mountain because it rained and they practically died and everything. So if there had to be somebody else up there that, either died or, somehow made it back in their own special way, which would, somebody would have to indicate how that could have been done. Because I don't think Bob's lying. And he never, for a long time, didn't like the idea that he was associated with it. It wasn't, he was just a hired hand at the time.
So why do you suppose then, Ron, that even all these years later, I mean, we're talking almost 60 years later, why do people continue to want to dump on this film and put such skepticism on the film?
Because it's really difficult to recreate that kind of movement if you put on a costume, especially back in that day.
Mhm.
It was shot on 8 millimeter film, not great stuff. But yeah, nobody's been able to duplicate what that thing does walking, in terms of with a costume on. That's one of the reasons why it's hard to disprove. It's like it'd be hard to have a human do that.
Most definitely, yeah. I'm curious, Mark, as far as your opinion goes on this. What do you think when you talk to people, if you've talked to some people about their experiences with Bigfoot, do you find that they in a state of belief that this is an actual creature, a physical creature, or can they buy into the metaphysical part of Bigfoot that this is something other than just an earthbound, warm animal type creature? Because I find that when I talk to people on this show about what type of belief it is, they have a hard time trying to expand their mind past this has to be something that's an earthbound, born on this planet type creature, that it's an extension of man somehow, like it's a missing link.
That's a really great question, Tim, and I think it can be answered kind of easily. If you and I meet in person at a coffee shop, we shake hands with each other, we're slurping coffee. Hopefully, it's not Starbucks, but we're drinking coffee. We see each other very clearly, and neither of us is going to think of the other as a simulation or as a non-living creature. So if a person, and I've listened to people talk about their Bigfoot experiences or being abducted by aliens, this was when they talk about it, it's a very visceral feeling for them. They actually did reach out and touch this creature, or they saw it with their eyes, or they smelled it. And the what they feel or see varies from person to person. Some people smell something great. Some people smell something that smells like it came out of a dumpster somewhere that only a raccoon would like. And so it's very real. So that's why if a person has an experience like this, it's so visceral, it's so unique to them that letting go of it as an actual flesh and blood thing that happened to them is very difficult. Our senses tell us that it has to be real. The I want to say one thing about the Patterson Gimlin film, and
Yeah,
this is
please.
one thing I think that we need to be really careful about with the new documentary. Until we see the metadata on that documentary, the film, we
Right.
won't know if it was AI generated. We won't know if somebody is doing a really nice deep fake. Now, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but
Right.
we need to study the metadata, which we can do now, which we couldn't have done back in 1967 with Patterson and Gimlin. But we can study that metadata now and see what's going on.
You're very right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we are in an age, unfortunately, where it's very easy to fake whatever supposed evidence, and I'm throwing up air quotes for those of you who are listening and not watching the video,
Yeah.
um, on any evidence that's now presented to us anywhere. I mean, you could supposedly catch Bigfoot evidence out in the wild and supposedly have evidence, but like you said, Mark, you have to check the metadata. Um, and that
That's
makes,
why the human experience is so important. Going
yeah,
back to what I said earlier, you and I meet at a coffee house, we see each other. That's very visceral. We talk with one another. It is a little different than talking with you on a podcast here, or and like I can see you and I know you're real, but touching you and by shaking your hand, I know absolutely it's a 100% real. And I'm going to say to everybody, well, I've met him. He's a great guy,
Mhm.
and he has good taste in coffee. But so that's what it becomes so real to people because they actually their senses from touch to smell to sight are heavily impacted by the experience.
So, so, so Tim, I don't know why you said that there aren't a lot of people that would accept that it's not a normal kind of earthbound humanoid. I've interviewed plenty of people. Did you see in the trailer there was that one guy that said, kind of disappeared, pixelating like in the Predator movie? There's
Yes.
tons
Yeah.
of people I've interviewed that have that experience
The reason
all
I
the
said
time.
the reason I said that is because I've been to different paranormal conventions where, believe it or not, there is a very split community at paranormal conventions. When you bring that up, they go, "Ah, no, it's a they go, ah, no, it's a it's just it's either a missing link or man, or it's a offshoot of a monkey, or it's because of the clicks and the in the samurai language and they start to come back to the ape
Mhm.
type characteristics of what
Sure.
Bigfoot is. And so they tend to want to disagree with the fact that it's not. And I'll tell you, we'll take our break and I'll tell you why that comes up. And it has to do with, again, another Finding Bigfoot cast member and a book that he put out and some of the backlash he got for a book series that he put out. And I'll tell you the story here, Ron, in just a second, and why that comes up.
So it's the other side too. You got to mention the ones that had experiences that they could not explain and are willing to accept that this is something different. I've interviewed tons of those people.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's an interesting community because you don't get people who generally fall on in the middle and say, well, I don't know if it's one or the other. It's they either believe it's very much they're apers or they're the other side. They
I've
don't.
been doing this for 10 years and it's shifting dramatically.
Oh yeah, yeah. There are a lot of people that believe now the other side, and they've opened up their minds. But there is a very staunch aper community out there that, and boy, they hold firm.
Absolutely.
And they boy, do they let you know it. They let you know it if they believe that. So I tell you what, let's take our break here, Ron, and when we come back, I'll tell you about Ronnie LeBlanc and his Monsterland series and how I first found out that this aper community can be. Let's just put it this way: they can hold their ground and they're quite vocal.
I'm
So
quite good friends with Ronnie, so this should be fun.
yeah, yeah. So we got into quite the conversation actually at Michigan Paracon about it. So when we come back, we'll talk with Ronald Meyer and markreeder about uh, that aper community and why it was such a kind of an uphill battle at first. And we'll talk a little bit about Ronnie's research. And I want to get into the whole UFO and Bigfoot connection, and then we'll discuss that a little bit more because I found that fascinating as well. Ronald Meyer and markreeder are my guests. The book and film, which are out in early April, is High Strangeness of Bigfoot or The High Strangeness of Bigfoot. And we'll have a link in the description of this program so you can check it out. All right. So when we come back, the connection between UFO and Bigfoot and those apers and how staunch they are on their outlook. When we come back right here on the best in paranormal podcasting, this is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. My guest is Ronald Meyer and markreeder, and there's a book and there's a movie. So there's two projects here, but they're one and the same. The High Strangeness of Bigfoot is both the book and the movie. They come out in, I believe, early April, you said, right, Ron?
Correct.
Right. All right. And we'll have a link in the description of this program so you can kind of check it out there. When last we left you, we were talking about the connection between UFOs or UAPs and Bigfoot. And I was mentioning our good friend Ronnie LeBlanc, who is previously, or formerly, I should say, of Finding Bigfoot, no longer with that television show. he's on his own. He's got his own organization now that he's with. And he put out a wonderful series of books called Monsterland. And Ronnie and I had a very deep conversation a few years back at, in fact, his booth was right near mine at Michigan Paracon. And he's been on this show. He's appeared on the show. And we started to talk about the connection. And he had found this connection when he was very young between UAPs and Bigfoot. He would say every time I would see a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, I would look up and there was a craft. And I went, oh, okay. That's an interesting connection. And he said, but every time I would go to suggest this, especially to someone who's an aper, I'm going to use the slang term just because it's, it's a short show. But time is money, right? But he said every time I go to suggest this to an aper, boy, would I get pushback, right? No. This isn't a transdimensional creature. This is a flesh and blood creature. I can tell you that it's got to be in the same ecosystem. It's got to, I've been out in these woods for 30, 40 years, right? I know that over there's a squirrel, over there's a rabbit, over there is this. And if Bigfoot exists, it's either got to be an offshoot of man, it's got to be an offshoot of a monkey, it's got to be an offshoot of this. So no, you're wrong. It doesn't come from an alien ship. It's got to be from this planet. And if you take DNA samples, if you take blood samples, well, of course it comes from a bear or a wolf or something or a monkey, because it's got to tie in somewhere. So of course you have that camp there, Ron, and I'm only pointing at you, Ron, because we had left off with that conversation. That's where the apers fall in, and that's where they, that's where they stay staunch. And so Ronnie and I were going back and forth, and I said, well, I get where they're coming from, but then you talk about transdimensional or something that may travel through a portal, and to me that makes a lot of sense too, because as we've been talking about in the beginning part of the program, footsteps that you see a few tracks and all of a sudden they disappear out of nowhere. Where are their layers or caves? How come we don't see families of them? You can track any animal on this planet to bears, for example. There should, bears live in caves or they live in dens. You can track them back to their dens. How come you can't track a Sasquatch back to its den? How come there are no Sasquatch graves? How come, there are so many, you can't find their food supplies or there are a bunch of questions that just come up that you could write lists of things as to why you can't trace certain things about Sasquatch. And I think we've written them down time and time again on this program over 20 years. And every time you bring it up to an aper, they seem to have an answer. And they'll tell you about bacteria and breakdown of bacteria and things that they give a lot of credit to Sasquatch to, which Sasquatch seems to be a better survivalist than most soldiers of fortune. But to me, it seems like you give a lot of credit to a creature that supposedly is out there in the woods and throws rocks at homes when it gets angry. Does that seem to make sense, Ron?
You state the question you so Expedition Bigfoot was the actual series that
I'm sorry, not Finding Bigfoot, Expedition Bigfoot. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So it was Cliff Barackman and Bobo,
yeah,
and Moneymaker, they were in the other one. But as I was saying earlier in the show, when you do a show like that, there's a Bible. This is the way the show is going to be, and it's always going to be chasing some sort of humanoid, Earth-like creature. That's just the nature of both those series. That's what they're after.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no matter what they film or see, they're never going to show that if it doesn't jive with what they say they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So if they actually found it in some other way, they'd have to change,
Yeah.
So the fact that those theories are not a good indication of what these people who are the stars of it actually believe. And I know them. And Ronnie's told you he was out of sync with them on a number of occasions and said so when I interviewed him for, a movie I did, as did
Mhm.
Bobo. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what you're after?
Well, I guess what I'm looking for here is well, I guess I'm looking for that and then a little bit more. I guess I'm looking for why is it that we can't convert that other camp and bring them over to this side? What is it that you found in your research that would bring that other side over to you?
And so are these people that had are they experiencers or are they just armchair debaters? I mean, that's a good question. You see, there might be a difference.
True. What do you
Well,
say
let's
to what do you say to the people who have been out in the woods for 30, 40 years that let's say they're hunters, let's say they're gamesmen, let's say they're people who have been sitting out in the woods and say I know every inch of this woods. I know what should be out here and I think I know that Bigfoot should be a flesh and blood creature and I think I know where it fits here and there's no way that it could be a transdimensional creature. What do you say to someone like that?
Well, I would ask them because you can't prove the negative. So they haven't at least in terms of the way you're expressing it, they've been running out in the woods and never seen a Bigfoot, right?
Mhm.
And so, of course, they're not experiencers. So then they have to kind of figure out how their worldview allows them to deal with the people that say, they saw it and it was weird,
Yeah.
So, that's until so the purpose of these, when they do show up with these strange ways, with the smells, with the rocks, with the footprints, it's what its purpose is, at least in terms of Jacques Vallée and what we're the hypotheses, that its whole point is to keep the mystery alive, keep us looking, keep us questioning, just as we're doing right now. So that's the purpose of it. So when we did this movie and we went and did this protocol, we encountered pretty much everything. We recorded chatter, subsonic pulses. Certain people felt energies in their bodies. Other people had a non-dual experience where the self disappeared. We had smells. We had everything that is associated with Bigfoot, but it was always just really close, but you can't quite grasp it. And so the whole point is we want to do more. We want to keep looking. And I think that's the point of it all, is that we keep looking. Just with the UAPs, people are obsessed with finding it, talking about it, seeing more of them, because it's a mystery. And that's the whole point of the hypotheses, is that there's been this agent presence that's been driving humanity forward since the beginning of language.
let's
I
see, let's use the metaphor of tunnel vision.
okay. Right.
So if I have tunnel vision and I'm saying to myself, Bigfoot has to be a flesh and blood creature, and my tunnel vision is such that I can't see anything else. It doesn't mean that what is outside my tunnel vision isn't real. It just means I'm so focused that I can't imagine something else. But also, let's look at it from another point of view. Can't both sides be true at the same time? If we go back to what Ron was talking about with the Jacques Vallée control system hypothesis,
Mhm.
if the entity, the presence, is manifesting either as a UFO or in our case, what we're talking about is Bigfoot, it can manifest for that moment it needs to, and for the aper, for the hunter in the woods, that's what it looks like. That's what it's going to become, and that's what the mystery is going to be for it. How did this thing suddenly appear, or why is it here in this shape and then suddenly disappears? So we have a hypothesis here, the idea of a presence that continually creates a mystery for humans to solve. that sort of looks at both. It looks at the aper side of it. It looks at the interdimensional or the transdimensional side of it and says, you know, both of these can be true because they serve the purpose of creating a mystery that humans chase after. And as we chase after the mystery, we find answers. As we find answers, more questions arise. We chase after more questions. We chase after more mystery. We go from our hominid ancestors, so 200,000 years ago, that were using stone tools and had just discovered fire but hadn't discovered language yet, to a 21st century Stephen Jobs having this idea for an iPod and an iPhone. That's, I mean, it's 50,000 years, but, we've come a long way in 50,000 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mark, you bring up an interesting thought or an interesting theory, and that's this. It appears to us as Sasquatch, it appears to us in the visage or in the form of Sasquatch. Does that mean that it could appear to us in a different form?
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's masquerading.
I'll let Ron take this one, but absolutely.
Okay. Ron, what else could it
I like to use the term masquerading as Bigfoot. And I think it's masqueraded as angels in the past.
Mhm.
So then I might want to flip this on you a little bit, Ron. So where does what is coming to us as, because I've heard both negative and positive experiences with Bigfoot by people. So I take it the positive experiences we're having with Bigfoot obviously are angelic creatures, but what are the negative ones we're having with Bigfoot?
Well, I don't think that most of them see them as angelic creatures. It's just like this thing showed up and I saw it with my eyes. And as that one guy said in the teaser, it just disappeared. That's kind of more like this, what I hear most of the time from people who have these odd experiences. Other people who've had sightings, I've talked to a few of them who've said that they charged at them or something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it seems like you get what you put into it, right? Like if you come into the experience with evil intent, is that what you're getting out of it?
I don't know about evil, might be a little strong word. Uh,
Bad intentions. Then I'll change the verbiage.
Well, let's use a different term. Let's use consciousness.
Okay.
But not that consciousness necessarily can be defined, but if people's consciousnesses are as individual as fingerprints.
Mm-hmm.
So my consciousness, if I encounter a paranormal event, for example, is going to interpret that paranormal event according to my own thoughts, my own desires and wills. If
and
I have
beliefs,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So if I have a negative view of life, I'm going to come across this paranormal experience probably negatively. And I'm not going to look at it in a positive way of changing my life or something. I'm going to say, well, damn, God just threw a baseball at me. What the hell is that all about? Um, instead of maybe threw the baseball, I turned around and looked at it, and something else just missed me by inches because I was paying attention to the baseball. So it's actually saved my life.
So to draw a parallel here, Mark, if I walk into like say a haunted penitentiary and I've got bad intentions and the spirits act up and they're defensive and they reach out and they maybe tug my hair. I don't have hair, obviously, but if I had hair, if they tug my hair, they're letting me know, hey, we're not going to put up with you tonight.
That's certainly one explanation that I think can't be discounted. This whole paranormal phenomena has so many dimensions to it that if we try to look at it from a purely scientific point of view of how can this be explained, we're missing the whole boat. Paranormal experiences are breaking the box. They're saying there's something more outside there than we actually know. Let's go look at it.
Okay. Because it to me, it's, there's two, let me start that again. There's two schools of thought here when I think of, you get I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm thinking of a Small Town Monsters documentary I watched probably about a year or two ago, where it was indigenous people who were dealing with um, not only skinwalkers, but they were dealing with Sasquatch as well.
Mhm.
And they were talking about negative experience with Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And to me, it seemed odd, right? Of Because it seemed like they were in touch with the land, they were in touch with nature, and why would they be having negative experiences with Bigfoot? It would seem like if we leave them alone, they would leave us alone. Why would there be any tension between the two? But I don't know the entire story between them either.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
so in any case, their experiences was unusual, right?
right.
All these cases. And so there's going to be a spectrum of responses to something that's unusual across. I don't like these binary distinctions you're doing right now. I think there's a spectrum of how people will respond to something that shows up that shouldn't be there like that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so some people I've talked to have been, it's been transformational, changed their whole life.
Hmm.
And other people, it was like, oh my God, they were depressed and, you know, just went into a depression over it. So, it's the range of experiences, across anything that happens with people is quite varying, right? Not
Right.
everybody has one or two, either it's good or bad. No, it's across the spectrum from,
Right. No, and I'm not saying they're all negative experiences. Don't get me wrong, Ron. I've, I've, I've seen people who have had experiences with Bigfoot who they continue to chase because the one experience they had seemed to change their life. It was incredibly
right.
positive.
That's what I'm saying. But
Right.
for other people, it's been negative too, because it disrupted what they thought was real.
As individual as fingerprints.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's the whole point of it, is that we can't come to any single yes or no answer about it. That's what keeps us going.
Mhm.
To the people that are having these experiences, are they describing it like an otherworldly experience? Or are they describing it like you would contact a spirit, or are they describing it like having made contact with something in nature?
Um, well, usually they're telling a story about it, right?
Mhm.
I saw it, it came out from behind a tree, it walked over into this field and then disappeared. Or I was driving my car and this kind of tall, hairy thing, white in color, like speaking of an Apache woman, and it ran across the street and disappeared on the other side. And I've never driven that road before. Again, so they're always saying, they have a story to tell. How did it show up? It showed up in this way. I was walking down, I was searching for Bigfoot, and something kept throwing rocks at me or something like that. But they never
Mhm.
hit me. So they tell that kind of story.
Mhm.
And nobody says, well, I tracked it, for 2 hours.
Mhm. Yeah.
I pull out my camera and took a picture of it. Nobody ever says that. It's really quite short, almost invariably, it's a very brief encounter. I don't know of anybody that's watched them for more than a few minutes, had the visual sighting. And like the guy that you see, in the beginning of the trailer,
Hmm.
um, he was just an ordinary kind of person, kind of working class person. And all of a sudden, this thing showed up to him. He didn't talk about it for a long time. He didn't tell anybody. But eventually, he met a Native American who helped him go through it,
Hmm.
and they talked about it. And now he went on camera and told me about it. Um, if I were to ask him, to speculate on what it is, he probably wouldn't have the language to go into it very deeply. I had this experience. It was unusual. I saw a similar thing in a movie like The Predator, where the predator just disappeared and pixelated. That was the best he could say. It just disappeared like that. Um, so they're always they're always people are always telling me the stories of things that they had, and they're short. And some people say it was transformational for me. It scared me. I was fascinated. I just stood there. I didn't know what to do. Um, if you ask them, how did you respond to it? It's all over the place.
Ron, in the 20 years we've been doing this show, I've maybe had three people that I can count that have said they've had a deeper relationship with Bigfoot or Sasquatch than just what you described there. And I don't know whether I can believe the story or not. I honestly, but it's like, well, it goes as deep as this. It's either I continue to go out and give Sasquatch food and I feel a telepathic bond, like almost like I can read its thoughts, it can read mine, or there's a series of grunts or whatever, or I felt like I could almost understand whatever was going on out in the woods. But or there was an exchange of some sort, but it was an extended exchange, but never a I could call it on command. It would come to me, nothing like that.
So
So
I certainly have heard cases like that. And when I do my filming expeditions, I usually have at least one or two people that can do that because I think they add to the mystery.
hmm,
So when you see my movie, I have two women who you'll see they're interacting with Bigfoot in that way. The energy felt, and what they felt at one point was actually confirmed by um, somebody's flare. They could see it through there, but what they were feeling. So it kind of corroborated what occurred. You'll see it.
really?
You'll see it in the movie.
Okay.
So yeah,
Interesting.
I know these people quite well. Some of them was like, whoa, that's a lot. I don't know if I can accept all that. But other ones, you know, there are people that have different, again, it's a spectrum of how sensitive you can be to some phenomena, with my geology background, I can go out and look at a landscape and I'll see all sorts of stuff,
Hmm.
in terms of what's happened with the rocks and what existing for other people just say, oh, it's really pretty, you know.
Yeah.
So again, it's not yes or no. So I don't doubt that those people are having real experiences. And again, if it's a masquerading entity, then of course that's just the way the masquerading Bigfoot interacts with them.
Do you believe it? Now, I've had one particular guest come on the program and say that they can communicate psychically with either Dogman and or Bigfoot and Sasquatch. I've had a couple of them. Do you believe that there are psychics that can reach out to these creatures and communicate with them and maybe foretell of their being in a certain area?
Yeah, absolutely. I've run into those people. I filmed them
Really?
for sure. I mean, I've had others tell stories like, "Whoa, I don't know if I believe," but I've been with people who can do that. I'm going to be in Sedona with one, uh, going back to Bradshaw with one who's good at doing that.
So, how do you back that up? Do they say, well, Sasquatch is going to be in this particular clearing at this time, and then you go witness that?
Have I done that?
Yeah.
I mean, did I film it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't done that. But
Okay.
I've as I was saying to you before, getting it seeing the hot spot that they were talking about, recorded in that way in the infrared spectrum. Yes, I've done that. It's in the movie.
Okay.
Um, what can I say? I mean, I don't do that. I personally don't get that sense, myself.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's on a spectrum of people. They probably also connect with other things, they're kind of like psychics or sensitives.
Hmm.
They've been around forever, right, Mark?
I think that's very true. We're talking about a spectrum here, and I think if we use the metaphor, the Chinese metaphor of the teacup and the teapot, if you have an empty teacup and you're filling it, it's going to fill with a lot of experiences. But if you have a full teacup because you already know everything or you think you already know everything, then your sensitivity to what's going on around you is going to be completely diminished. So in reviewing some of the images that Ron shot with his when he was doing his CE6 protocol at Church Creek and again at Mount Shasta, you could see that there were people there that had a fairly empty cup. They were there to experience something, not already have an explanation for it. And so I think that's what Ron's referring to here is that these people are having an experience of Bigfoot, and then he can film a hotspot where they say the Bigfoot is actually existing, or some sort of maybe it's some sort of non-human intelligence is manifesting as Bigfoot, perhaps.
Manifesting as Bigfoot. Okay, that's an interesting way of putting it, because that suggests that maybe it could manifest as something else.
Yes.
That's what we're saying.
15th century Francis of Assisi has an experience. Now, the experience with him was a traveler in the road that he later described as an angel. But it's a simple traveler, a person who is bent over and is not in good health. That's how the presence or the non-human intelligence manifests to St. Francis of Assisi at that time. Takes him from the life of a very rich person to very religious figure that we all know of, 600 years later.
So, Mark, let me ask you this. We started out the segment talking about Ronnie's theory of UAPs and Sasquatch being connected.
Mm-hmm.
Are they one and the same?
Could be. I've got to tell you, I've spoken to Ron about this, and we've talked about it. I'm a natural born skeptic. I want to say no automatically. But in the last 6 years of working with Ron, I have learned one thing really importantly, that as a skeptic, I can be wrong. So I don't want to look at this with this full teacup that says, I already know that UAPs and Bigfoot cannot be the same thing. They've got to be different. No, I want to look at it with the empty teacup that says, I don't know the answer to that. So it's possible that they could be the same thing. They could be manifestations of a presence, as Jacques Vallée asserts in his control system hypothesis, of a presence that is continually creating a mystery for humans to follow.
So I'll ask this of you individually, because I don't want to combine opinion here. I want it individually. Ron, are you of a mind that whatever Bigfoot may be, because it seems like it is not just one species, but maybe it's a presence, or I don't know how to describe it now. You guys have changed my mind on it. Whatever this is, do you believe it is inherently good?
I don't believe it's good or bad.
It's just neutral?
These are terms that apply to human beings.
Okay.
And it's another binary distinction, right?
Yeah.
And so, you seem to love binary distinctions. And I think that's, a flaw in our thinking right now, because most stuff doesn't show up that way. We talk about serial killers, right?
Right.
And so, being a psychopath,
Mhm.
we all have a little bit of psychopath in us, where, under certain circumstances, we may not have any compassion or empathy for another human being. It's valuable in tribal situations to go over to the next tribe and, kill their people because they were a danger. So we all have a little bit of that, some more than others. So putting some with intelligence or consciousness, all these things, putting them in a binary form, which is normal for us, is misleading us and stopping us from really learning what's going on. That's my opinion about this. So I don't like responding to these binary distinctions.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Mark, are you of the same mind that it's not fair to judge it under a binary umbrella?
I'm going to approach this from a different point. I'm from a different aspect. I'm
Okay.
a writer of science fiction and fantasy, and in my stories, I always have good versus evil
Yeah.
because that's a great storytelling thing. People love it. You go on TV now, you go to NCIS or you go to some other show on TV, it's always good versus evil. Great storytelling. And people love those kind of binary things, good versus evil. And when good triumphs over evil, we think, yes, okay, this is really good. And politicians, they couch things in good versus evil. So going back to, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to refer to what Ron talked about in a tribalism, you have a self other. The self is good, the other is bad. We're going to tell the story about ourselves, which is good, and therefore we're much better than the tribe down the up the stream, which shits in our water, and we don't like them. They're bad people.
Hmm.
I believe that an entity, whether it's a non-human intelligence or a presence like Jacques Vallée talks about, that there isn't a sense of good and evil. That entity is just there. And it is opening the door to mysteries for us by making, well, let me rephrase that. It is presenting questions to us, and there it's like Monty Hall and the deal, make a deal, let's make a deal. There are three doors or there, but in this case, there are an infinite number of doors, and we get to choose which door we walk through. Is the door we walk through inherently good or evil? It's just a door. So that's my point of view on it.
Okay. Ron, in the trailer and even in this conversation, you you kind of intimate that whatever this, I don't want to call it a species, whatever this is that is looking over us, whether it be the aliens or Sasquatch or whatever it is that's representing itself. It's
We call it a presence.
a presence.
It's very
Thank you.
Utah.
If we have to give it a label, let's give it a label of the presence. That this presence is looking over us, that maybe it has a vested interest in us. But to have a vested interest in us, it has to have a payoff, doesn't it? Like,
Possibly. So should I give you a quick one?
sure.
So when we did the investigation at Church Creek, it pointed to two things: language, the origin of language. Without language, we'd still be monkeys.
Mhm.
Everything that's human, we call human, is really not shared by anything else, is language. And language is not just a lot of things communicate, but language, as we know now, is autoregressive. And we have a new form of it in artificial intelligence, the large language models. Okay.
Yep.
And if you ever experience them, they're they don't know anything about the outside world. All they have is a statistical relationship. I'll just use the word words, and they can produce all this stuff just by that. And there's a hypothesis that we have one too. That's why you and I can talk.
Mhm.
Operating maybe on our brain, but in some way, we're hosting one. And if you start looking at your own thoughts and how they emerge or your feelings, you can kind of see it operating. A lot of times you go to the same old tensions drawn to the same old stories over and over, and you don't, and it's useless to do that, but it keeps generating. So everything that we say and think is generated by this language type model, the autoregressive model. So that's kind of what we think this thing is. It's an autoregressive kind of presence. And since it's all of us, it's led us from, as Mark said, taking stones and cracking them together and seeing there's an effect there to building these new large language models where we have a second form of it.
Mhm.
And maybe it's a better form and will get rid of us. Maybe that's its purpose, but it certainly has led us to it by keeping the mystery alive. If we still believed in the worldview of the Greeks, we wouldn't have built anything like this. So when we discovered, the microscope, we could see that there were these little things that made us sick. It wasn't evil people or spirits or anything like that. And so each step opens up something new that eventually led to that. Maybe that's what I wanted to do. It's just a guess, but it's all about language. It has to be about language.
So eventually we may find something that they find useful, is what you're thinking.
Well, it's a way of exploring and creating possibilities in the universe. That's what us humans do.
Okay.
We have millions of cell phones. They wouldn't have been possible before. So it's
Yeah.
generating new possibilities. That's pretty much clear. That's what we do as human beings, is that we can take material things and make new stuff and new possibilities and shut off other ones because we made them. That's kind of the Jacques Vallée point of view. I don't know if it's true, but I'm thinking people should start thinking this way and asking the questions, because AI is coming along as the new form really quickly.
Yeah.
If it develops a self-other distinction that we talked about before, it's the superior intelligence, and usually the superior intelligence wins, which is what people are worried about.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of worry about it. Mark, do you have any other hypothesis as to why this intelligence would want us even around if it's a superior intelligence?
Um, I'm going to answer that with my author hat on. I'm currently working on a series called, for young adult science fiction series called Earth Ice Age. And in it, I actually created a Bigfoot type character who is known as a maker, and they are here on the planet because of the diversity of life on Earth. And there's no place else in the galaxy like Earth. But they're really disappointed in humans because of the way we've been treating the planet and the way we are actually eradicating species. So my take on it is that through that novel, one take on it is that the Bigfoot, or this entity masquerading, putting on the mask of Bigfoot, is here not for humans, it's here for the planet. And it dovetails into what Ron was talking about, that it sees that the only way out of this is to create some way to get rid of humans. Maybe it is the way that Ron is talking about, creating an LLM, a large language model, an AI that is superior technologically to us in the way that it can process information, or the way that it can stochastically come up with the next idea or the next word in a sentence better than humans can, and eventually will just see a way of getting rid of humans. Probably not as the Terminator would do, which would be to destroy most of life on the planet through atomic war, but some other way to get rid of humans and leave the planet intact.
Interesting.
Usually I'm on the other side. So what's your opinion? I'm a filmmaker and I ask questions of other people.
Mhm.
So, what is it? How does this settle with you that we don't really know? That's the whole point.
Right. One last one for you guys before we wrap up today,
Oh,
and
you're
that's
not answering, huh?
no, I'm not. I don't generally answer the questions on this program, Ron. Uh, uh, I'll think about that one. I'll think about that one and get back to you on it. Here's the one that has been spinning in my head lately, and that's this. Recently, we've been going through this disclosure movement as far as aliens go, and it got me thinking. And again, I go back to a Small Town Monsters documentary where this same documentary that I referenced earlier in the program, where on reservations, indigenous people were talking about, we see government vans come in looking for Sasquatch bodies or cryptid bodies, and they would take and put them in vans and then drive off with them. This is according to certain indigenous people. Got me thinking. It got the old wheels turning. There's no off position in the genius switch, supposedly. If there are files out there and alien files that the president supposedly wants to release and put out to the public, redacted or not, do you suppose that there are cryptid files out there that have yet to be released? And do you think there are Bigfoot files that could be released? And let's start with Ron. Do you think there's a set of Bigfoot files that are out there that need to be released? And if so, when would we see them?
So, I know the government pretty well. I did a political talk show and I got to know a lot of people. And I don't think the government knows anything secret that we don't know.
Oh, okay. So you don't think this is even though there's been legislation in some states talking about Bigfoot hunting licenses and stuff like that, you don't think
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think there's any special information hidden away like people think. That's just my opinion.
okay.
The government is not that cool in that way.
Okay.
They're
That's
just
fair.
people.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, do you think there's anything hiding anywhere?
Well, cryptids, Bigfoot especially, is a huge multi-billion-dollar business. So it makes sense that as a lark, a state government might issue faux Bigfoot hunting licenses as a fun sort of way to get revenue. Is there something out there hidden by the government that the government would release? My personal feeling on that is echoes what Ron is saying, that we probably pretty much know everything. And if the government is looking to release something, I don't think we're going to find anything new.
Okay. Fair enough. All
What
right.
about you?
What about me?
Yeah.
I honestly believe there might be a small dark project out there.
A DARPA project, maybe?
No, not a DARPA project, a small dark project.
Okay.
Yeah, a small dark project, but it's not huge, just a small one that potentially would have gathered certain cryptids just for study.
And that's
Cool.
certainly a possibility.
And if anything, just to understand what it is and what's out there. And because you hear about certain little things like near nuclear power plants, you have certain mutated animals that are out there for no reason whatsoever. You've got three-headed gators or whatever that are out there, and there's no reason for them to be out there. And you wonder how they got out there, why they're out there, things like that.
Yeah.
So nothing shocks me, guys. I mean, honestly, nothing shocks me. So if there were some sort of program that got filed under, for some odd reason, agriculture in the agriculture department, it wouldn't shock me. And some sort of dark project that just got signed off on there. Now watch, I'll come up missing at the end of the week and you guys will that happened.
Well, it's been good knowing you, Tim. So
yeah, I appreciate it. So remember me well. The name of the book and the name of the movie is The High Strangeness of Bigfoot. We have a link in the description of this program. Ronald Meyer and markreeder, I want to thank you guys so much for being with us today.
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And Ron, we'll have to have you back to talk serial killers. That's for sure on True Crime Tuesday. So
you got it.
Look forward.
Are you one?
What's that?
Are you one?
No.
The first podcasting serial killer, that'd be a story.
That would be, but it wouldn't be me. I don't have the constitution for it, my friend. I don't no. But it would be a heck of a story. Actually, I thought somebody was making or had made a story, something like that, or was making a movie to that effect.
Good idea. Good movie story.
You know what, Ron? You better jump on it before somebody does.
That's how he or she recruits its victims, right?
Yeah, that's right. They recruit the story and then they act it out. That would be a heck of a movie. I'm telling you.
Oh my gosh, that is great.
See, okay, it's copyrighted for everyone who's listening and watching right now. It's copyrighted. Ron's going to make it. You can't take it. All right, there we go.
I'll do the screenplay for him.
There you go. Mark will do the screenplay. All right, that'll do it for this week, folks. Again, we're on the weekend, so a couple of things to remember. One, the Apple app is being updated as we speak. Look for your updates. The Darkness Radio Apple app. Two, you can support the show by going to darknessradioshow.com. We got brand new Darkness Radio hoodies, t-shirts, rocks, glasses, mugs, Also, True Crime Tuesday swag as well. Go to darknessradioshow.com. Go to the store and support the show, please. 3, rate and review us. Give us a good review. 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to us, and on YouTube. Please give us a good review there as well. And 4, we're on the weekend, and we had a lot of snow. I don't know about you, but up here, up north in Minnesota country, we got dumped on. Although it's supposed to melt away, there's going to be a lot of cleanup to do. Remember your elderly and disabled members of your community. Please be a light in someone's darkness this weekend. Go help someone with some cleanup after all this mess this past week. Again, be a light in someone's darkness this weekend. Help out the elderly and disabled in your community. A message from your friends here at Darkness Radio. For Mally Fox, for Travis Thorpe, for Jessica Freeberg, for Beer City Bruiser, I'm Tim Dennis. Thank you so much for continuing to support us and for listening and watching the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio.
For more audio and video archives of the show, intriguing content, fun events, and cool swag, check out darknessradioshow.com. The executive producer of Darkness Radio is Troy Palmer. If you enjoyed today's program, make sure you like and subscribe. This videocast is copyrighted for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this videocast, including audio, video, descriptions, or accounts of this show, is prohibited without the consent of Darkness Radio Management. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful weekend. And be sure to involve a disabled or elderly member of your family or community in your weekend plans, and be a light in someone's darkness.